for some of us, and wherever you are, again, is perfect. It's so important to know that this is about your personal best, and that it is a nonlinear process. So we're going to do a unique kind of opening circle. In fact, actually, what I'd like to open with is our enthusiasm. Okay, so we're gonna go around and share a win briefly, like just something that you're celebrating, something that you're rewarding, and then we're gonna go around deeper, and I'm gonna ask for us to based on who has a question, we're going to open it up to not just, ooh, this is something technical I need to know, but maybe it's like, hey, here's the resistance I'm feeling or the challenge I'm having. Because if you're having it, likely others are too. So we can learn from each other's coaching. And so that's the format today. And also, I'll be sharing tips and tools about completing the manuscript. I want to make the distinction that we won't be going into rewriting and marketing until next week. So let's kind of focus on what do you need to know, to through whether you're blueprinting or just channeling, like to finish the manuscript. So with that said, I'm going to invite you to, if you have your book, you hold up your book cover, and you share. We don't need to hear the title and the details of the book. We just want to see that you did that and a win about the week. So it's kind of a positive roll call just to raise the morale. And I'm going to start. I know Alexandra had some great news for us. We'll start with her. Daphne and Gwendolyn. Alexandra, are you ready for us? I know you're tending to your little one too, so there you are.
Hi, yes. Yes, I'm celebrating completing 1/3 of the manuscript. Yay!
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also celebrating all those moments when it felt like really like, wow, I was in tune, and something was coming that felt really alive and sparkly.
Beautiful. Okay, Gwendolyn. What I'll do is I'll call on people whose video is on, and that way I know some of you are just listening, and we'll get a roll call from Gwendolyn first.
So it's Gwendith.
Gwendith, yes.
And I'm celebrating this process and how I'm just able to fly through the writing and pages and pages and pages. And I look back and I say, oh my gosh, so many pages. Like I've never done so much in this period of time ever before. So this is so exciting for me to see that kind of progress every day.
Excellent.
I have a question. Is this the not right time to ask it?
We'll come to you well, as soon as we open the circle. We're going to take wins.
Okay.
Good.
Great.
Daphne, are you with us?
Hi. I'm celebrating that I just had a few good, solid writing sessions today, that I actually met my word count, which, not that I did all of the days, but I'm celebrating that I have that in me, which I think is a bit of a mind shift. I'm like unraveling a lot of, I guess, limiting self-beliefs around that. So I'm celebrating that capacity to invoke.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good. So those with videos on, Leanna, Kali, and then William.
So I am celebrating being consistent. I'm here, I'm still here, which is amazing. It's my first big writing project like this. So had a big celebration the other night. It was my first year anniversary, but also I said I want to celebrate the fact that I'm still doing this. I've been writing a little bit every day, and you know, it's happening. It's happening.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I'm celebrating that I'm still here and as committed as ever to writing my book, even though the last 2 weeks have been 2 out of 10, just owing to life issues that have come up that needed my attention. But today I got right back into my book, and so I'm very excited about that. And I did a really shitty cover because I'm terrible at drawing, but I have done graphic ones which I've posted on the Facebook site. I just couldn't print them out because my printer's not working. But what I did like about this was the weight and the heft of it, because I do think my book's going to be pretty substantial. So it does feel great to hold it in my hands.
Yes, sweet. Thank you. William.
I was a little late getting into the group today, but I'm celebrating getting here.
Yeah.
And I'm just celebrating I'm still writing. I haven't been progressing with the volume of words or anything, but I'm meeting a lot of resistance, but I'm sticking with it, and I do believe I can write this book, and I'm grateful to be part of the group. So
We're happy to have you. Thank you. Good. So let's go to Narcisse and Diane and then Brianna.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I'm celebrating that I think I completed half of my goals, and I'm very happy to be here.
Excellent. Good. There's something so important about focusing on the half of the glass that is full, you know, for all of us, because you know, what we focus on expands. So that's beautiful. Dan.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm celebrating that for some reason this class is really resonating well with me, and I'll be completed by June 1st.
Woohoo!
2.5 chapters left. So I've never written this much, and it's never ever been this easy. So I'm really, really happy. So that's my win.
Thank you. Brianna.
Hi. I'm going to celebrate. I am celebrating showing up today. Was feeling a bit sticky, and I'm super celebrating being here. I'm celebrating my desire to write. Like, it's really, I'm feeling so excited about that. One of the writings for this book turned into a course, which we filled, and that has been super exciting. And so I'm going to celebrate that distraction and kind of where it ended up taking me.
Great. Thank you. Christiane, Jim, and Kadesh.
So I'm celebrating 124 pages, what is basically half of the book, and I just really, I really enjoyed the process of it, and also 3-4 years, and just like thinking like, oh my God, did I write that? So putting all those pieces together, and just having that wisdom gathered and in one place feels really good.
Excellent. Jim, I'm not, there you are.
Sorry about that. I'm making a salad. I had olive juice all over my fingers. So the thing that I'm celebrating is that I've nearly finished 2 chapters out of 20. And when I stopped and I realized, well, that's 10%, I just need to put the final paragraphs on both of those chapters, and then I can move on. That feels like a little bit of momentum, doesn't it? So.
Absolutely. Great. Veep?
Hi. So I'm celebrating my success in gluing my butt and writing, although everything that's happening around. Yeah, that's the main thing.
Good, thank you. Yes, and next I see Michael, Taina, Linda.
I'm celebrating the writing, but also I've gone back and done some of the rewriting of the blueprinting, and that magic of the writing has been coming into the blueprinting that I've gone back into, and it's just felt so great to have these like magical things come in into the blueprinting process as well. So I'm super excited. I'm loving the process.
Taina, do you have your book? Your book cover was gorgeous. Yeah, look at that. Good.
And I did the back cover too. So I don't know if you can see it, but and the back cover.
Sweet.
So I put my bio on there and all the like little places where things would go, other people's quotes and the publishing company, all the little details. I even found a barcode to put on there. It was really fun. So I'm celebrating that. I'm celebrating how much fun I had creating the book cover and the back of it, and just how inspired I am by it. And that also motivated me to share on Facebook I'm writing a book in 90 days. Here, light the fire under my butt, or suffer public humiliation. Like, send me, messages, inspiration, and along the way and whatnot. And I've got over about 200 likes and comments, and just people cheering me on and sending me text messages. And so every day I feel I've got the support of my community behind me. So like, even when I'm like, I don't know if anything's gonna come out of me today, I'm like, I got so many people like cheering me on that I have to fucking do it. So that's my win for this week.
Great. When I used to do this writing course, I used to teach it in person, and on this day I would have like this gold, the gold star stickers, the ones that would say like, "Ooh, best-selling book." And so people would bring their mock-up. So I would give you a gold star to put on there so you could write, 1 million copies sold right on the book.
Yes. Oh, I'm so going to find that and put it up. And for anyone who hasn't done their book mock-up yet, if you want to use, you want to do it electronically, Canva.com is a free service, and they even have a template for book covers. And then you could add pictures and symbols and all the things that you want. Super fun and easy.
Great. I have a section on the group with resources, and I'd love for you to post a link on that. That's
Sounds good.
That's a good one. Okay, then.
Well, I'm celebrating that I was actually very frustrated because my outline and blueprint needed changing, and I was not getting as much writing done. So I reached out and brought in someone who's going to help me with that part and help and support me, because she's very organizational thinking, and I'm going to help her, and she wants to learn more of what I'm doing, so it's a win-win. Also, that just from writing this, I've just gotten so clear. I'm celebrating the plan that's coming out of it, for which will be the online part. And then it will lead into my 12-week manifestation wisdom course, which is part of my integrative healing teaching program. So lots of good stuff came out of some frustration.
Excellent. Lemonade.
Yep.
Thank you. Good. And then I think as far as roll call goes, we haven't heard from Dave, who's going to just be auditing today. And then Nathan, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Any wins?
Can you hear
want to
me?
share? Yes. We can hear you.
Oh, am I talking? My win is that I'm here.
Excellent. Very zen. Thank you. Okay, so what I want to start off with an inspiring story, because my assessment is oftentimes at this point, you know, when we share all our wins, it's like, oh wow, everybody's doing so great, and then might even be insecurity about the things that aren't wins or that, you know, are hard. And what we usually need is more motivation, more like positive reinforcement. And so when it comes to thinking about the writing, as powerful as it is to have, you know, the book, for those of you, who else, I know there were more book covers, but hold it up if you have it. Okay, good, Christiane. Excellent. So when you have your book in hand, it does motivate you towards the product. You know, there's a sense of, ooh, there's a finished light at the end of the tunnel. Now, the challenge with having the light at the end of the tunnel is that you don't, when you're in this long tunnel, you're like, oh my God, it's so long, and you're running a marathon. So the tendency is your mouth's going to get dry, or your muscles are going to ache, or at some point you're just going to want to give up. Like, that's part of the marathon. You know, you just go through those different symptoms. And it's not just thinking about the finish line, because if you just think about the finish line, your marathon is going to be miserable. What we want is for you to get the runner's high and to enjoy the running and to like see the scenery and to like, you know, get in the groove. And so it's my, you know, invitation that when we do our visualizations, actually visualize not just the product, but the process. The process being, I'm excited to go to my writing space. I'm excited to like put my hours in, or to make, you know, to rewrite or make mistakes, or to just, you know, it's really valuable to give yourself permission to be sloppy and to be playful and to be messy on the page. And so it's more about the channeling. And you know, I got this teaching from Olympic athletes. It was at the beginning of this Russian movement to do visualizations to extend people's personal bests. You know, they'd get their personal bests and then they'd imagine themselves improving that by 10%. And the next rehearsal or, you know, meeting, they would do what they'd visualized. And they found that when people were looking at their final scores or their times or their outcomes, that they would get a certain amount of progress, and it was like revolutionary, but it was not as profound as if they were visualizing the process and the practicing. Like, so visualizing the gold medal is great, but visualizing going to your, you know, to your practices is way more effective. So as writers, we want to really, you know, not just talk up, because people will say that. They're like, when's your book coming out? And it's like, as if that's all there is to writing. Like, I get that question all the time. When's it coming out? And it's like, how about, how's the writing going? Or, you know, how did you do today or this week? Or, you know, that kind of journey orientation. So that's the first piece I wanted to share. The other piece is a story, which is kind of unconventional, because I don't usually quote Christian ministers. I don't usually like idolize or look up to, but the motivating story of Miles Monroe is worth retelling. So he is a pastor who's like very charismatic. He's filling like the chapel with sometimes like up to 1,000, you know, like huge audiences. And he's never written. He's not a writer. He's not even he's just a channel, to share the, God's word. And in his front row, he's got this like publisher from New York who's like, you need to write a book. I want to help you. Here's my business card, after his sermon. And he looks at me, he's like, I'm not a writer. I'm not an author. Thank you very much. But, he didn't really want to get into the business of writing and selling. And the publisher was insistent and said, look, just keep my card and call me when you come to your senses. So he goes back to his hotel because he's, traveling and doing his sermons. And he's in his hotel that night and goes to bed. And he wakes up with God's voice in his ear. And it's like undeniably clear that he's being spoken to. And the message is that if he doesn't write that book, that he's a generational thief. And he's like, what does that mean? First of all, like those words, if you don't write that book, you're a generational thief is what he hears. And then he got like totally clear that he didn't want to be a thief in God's eyes. Like, he's going to go to his grave knowing that he, did everything, to serve the divine. And when he, called the publisher and started, the conversation, he really started looking at what books are. And he realized that, the printing press was invented in order to print the Bible. Like for him, it was like, well, this is a religious tool, is getting our, the word into, book form. And he has since, through the recordings of his sermons and the transcriptions and, over a dozen books, many of which are bestsellers. He's passed away now. But he's left, and it's even perfect because he has left behind this legacy of his work. And the biggest teaching about that was, if we go to our grave with that, our message, then we're stealing from the next generations. And we are like these divine messengers. We are, regardless of what denomination, each of us is like the divine experiencing itself through our unique perspective. And if we take that to the grave with us, it's like stealing it from the world, which is, how I feel. It's like most of my messages, they're not mine. They belong to the universe. And so passing them on and writing them is part of like, it's part of like the natural order of things, is to just give that back. So that is a little inspiration for us to, when we want to know, why am I running this marathon? Like, it feels like it's a long ways to go. It's like, it's a spiritual obligation for some of us to say, okay, I don't want to hold, I've been gifted this insight, this idea, this perspective, these thoughts, and they're not mine to hold on or to steal. They're mine to give. So that's my blessing to you, to motivate you. And in the coming weeks, before we meet, what are the questions and the challenges that you need to know to finish your manuscript? So we're going to open it up, starting with, somebody had a question already. Who was it? Gwendith.
Yeah. It's purely technical. It's a question of, I'm doing it by writing.
Right.
And so when you talk about pages, you're really talking about the printed page, right? As if I was putting it on a computer and accumulating a page that way.
So great. So I'm delighted that you're actually writing. I find like the craft of handwriting for everyone to know, especially those of you that sometimes journal and then transpose it into typing, that, you know, it is proven that that taps more into the left part of the brain. So the more creative brain, when we handwrite, it is way more personal and vulnerable than when we type. Even if you're like me and you type as fast as you can think, you know, it's like supposedly writing taps into this whole other creative place that typing does not. Anyway, what you want to do is get a sense on, like I wrote a book once almost exclusively on yellow legal pads. And so that was the shape of paper that I was writing. And the key is to know in my handwriting, how many pages of yellow legal pads does it take to make 250 words? Okay, so there's really easy word counters online. All you have to do is type in as much of it as you need in order to say, oh, or just count 250 words. And you say, that's one page. Maybe it's my 2 written pages equals 1 250 words. Maybe it's, you know, I write tiny and I can actually do it all on 1 page. But the point is your handwriting will vary. But once you have that, you can estimate based on how many, you can do the basic math, dividing your number of pages into 250 words, and that'll be the equivalent of what we're counting as pages of manuscript. Is that clear?
I do have to, I have to put like a sample of, let's say, a point. I know I make 100 words per point. So I really do have to type one up to see what it would be for a page, right?
Well, I
That's
mean,
what you're saying?
Yeah, if you already know, if you've already figured out a chunk is 100 words, and you're like, great, 2.5 chunks is a page.
Okay.
But it really does vary, because as you're going along, as many of you at this stage know, you might be like, oh, I need to put in another chunk and this and that. And, you know, so we can't just look at our outline or our blueprint and say, this is how many pages it's going to be exactly. Because some of us, and I'm going to give Diane your example, which was fantastic. Diane found in her process, where are you? That she couldn't do her chunks in 5 minutes. That's right. Tell us about the way you adjusted. I thought this was brilliant because it works for you.
So I'm also handwriting, and I found that if I did the 5-minute chunks, my word count wasn't enough to get to 50,000 words based on my outline. And I also was running out of time where I couldn't finish my thought. So I just added a minute, and it doesn't seem like much. I'd set the timer for 6 minutes instead of 5. And I was suddenly up to 250 words per chunk. I was able to get much more into that space where you just write without thinking and just free write better. And
so that's,
and then yeah, it was great. And then it made such a difference. It was just 1 minute.
I love how you course corrected for you, and this is the first time I'm understanding that you actually write a page per chunk. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with the 5 minutes, I was at like 187. I count the words because it's 250 words a page. So I just count. And yeah, and I was like, well, I was starting to kind of stress out. I'm like, okay, this is a booklet because I can't write 50,000 words based on the outline. Yeah. And then just changing it to 6 minutes made such a big difference. Got
it. And it's important that we don't compare our chunks to that, like that people don't think, oh, I need to write a chunk. In fact, that's actually really long, but it works for you and your outline. And so I'm delighted. But it does bring up a point. Like if we're hunting and pecking, 5 minutes is not enough. So, you want to tailor that to how much, how fast you type. Yeah, Michael.
I've been finding, I have that voice writing on Google Docs, and I've actually found that I'm able to flow it on even faster than I can type. or handwrite. And it really seems like my ideas are coming out, they're flowing, quite well with it. It's taken a little while to adapt to it, but I just wanted to put that out there too.
Great. So I had a client, we did a special writing retreat, and what they did, we worked on the blueprint, and I coached them to, they also were this was before Google dictation was so accurate. So they just finished their blueprint, took their little handy recorder like this, and asked the question and answered it, asked the question and answered it for 5-minute chunks. They wrote their whole book. They handed their recorder over to their secretary transcribed it, and they were done with their manuscript in a weekend. So I coached a client to write a 50,000 draft of a manuscript in a weekend. So with this process, it's possible. It's not that obviously the transcription takes time. There's value to being your own transcriber, because then you can edit as you're doing that. There's, lots of different processes. But the beautiful thing about writing on the chunks is that you actually start, building that writing muscle as well. Lots of different modalities. Let's move on to the next question. What else do you feel is either an obstacle to your completing the manuscript, or a question? Brianna.
My biggest obstacle is focus. Gluing the butt to the chair has been so good. I've looked back over that a couple of times. And just getting clear with my priorities.
Okay, so what are the distractions that are arising for you? And you're speaking for everyone, by the way.
Yeah, totally. So for me, it has been other work, right? Like having another project that would pop up, and not sticking to like the writing. We talked about this the last call too. The writing gets pushed when something else comes in, instead of holding it to the same priority or putting it above other things. It's like the one that moves.
Do you have in your calendar like writing time? And it's all the way through for the week, right? Okay. And so it's your writing time, but something else feels just so much more either important or seductive during that writing time. Okay. So now, have you tried, who was your last writing accountability buddy?
Liz.
Okay. So, Liz isn't with us now, but whoever your next accountability buddy, you might have said, hey, Liz, this is my writing time tomorrow. Can I text you? And it's like, I've had people do this because we are social animals, and doing things alone, like showing, if you and Liz had a writing date, say your writing time was from 4 to 6 that day. And maybe Liz is off taking care of her kids, but you say, I'm showing up from 4 to 6 at 4 o'clock. I'm going to call Liz, send her a text, and I'm not doing anything until I text her at 6 and say, okay, I'm done writing. Now, the thing is, you may or may not actually, get shit done in that 4 to 6 hour, but you're practicing the discipline of not doing anything else. So you're putting the time in, and I'm telling this to other people, like, it's okay to, like Stanley mentioned this, I'm going to put the time in and I'm going to count the hours, not the pages. Because maybe at your stage of writing, it's not as productive, and maybe you're just rereading your blueprint or you're tweaking here and there, and that's fine. But the habit of putting the time in is really golden. That's like going to the gym and working out the muscle of focusing on one project as opposed to multitasking. So I invite everybody, when you talk to your accountability buddy this week, to actually tell your accountability buddy, these are the times that I'm showing up, and hey, do you need any support or extra, help really showing up for those times? Great. Let us know how that goes. What else is an obstacle? Jim.
So here's another geek tip. Did you know that if you're on mute, you can hold your space bar down and it will unmute for you while you hold the space bar down? Anyway.
No idea. Zoom tip.
Yeah, for you. Yeah. So like I think it was Brianna said, life is just getting in the way, and I sit down, my butt's glued in the chair, and there's 1,000 things that come at me, even in that space that I've prepared.
Okay,
so
so
one of the things I'm feeling called to do.
Pause for a moment, and I want to hear what else you're going to say. But like, how can other things come to you? Have you turned off your internet? Have you turned off your phone?
Yeah. So I've tried that, and I've tried. Well, actually, the biggest help that I've got is I've got this file called a parking lot, and it's just where the random thoughts go. You know, I'm writing a chapter on the possibility of life beyond Earth, and something comes up about robots. I put it in the parking lot.
Okay, so when you say something comes up, you literally mean like my mind is mushrooming in directions that are outside the scope of the book.
Focus.
Okay, got it. Great. Good.
Yeah.
Parking lot sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it is. It works for me really well. So then, and then the other thing is the temptation to fact check. Well, what really is the light time between here and Pluto? Do I have that right? You know, and so I just what I've decided I would do, since you told me it could be a shitty first draft, when there's something I need to fact check, I just highlight it in yellow and move on.
Perfect. Perfect. So one little tip on that, because highlighting in yellow is a great idea because you can see it visually, but it doesn't help when you want to search and find. If you're in, so when I want everybody to write their entire manuscript without researching all those details, because they'll send you off into other rabbit holes. So every time you come to something that needs research, or, oh, I need to find that quote, or what was it, you know, the impulse to Google, what I write is www, and then I move on. And then when I'm done with my entire manuscript, and you could write fact check and then do, you know, whatever it is that you consistently write, at the end of the manuscript case, I say, okay, great. This week I'm going to do a research week, right? And so let me find and search, find and replace www. And every time I come to those little notes, I'll remember, you know, okay, this is what I need to research, and or fact check or whatever. But it is a valuable post game. It's almost like if you're an editor and you're like, oops, I'll fix that in post. Was there more, Jim?
Oh, yeah, I love that idea. That's great. Just put www in front of it and move on. You don't even have to bother with finding the highlighting tool. Right. So the other thing is time of day, thinking that, you know, maybe I should just, you know, I'd like to try this. I haven't done it yet. It's like get up at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And you know, it's dark out, and you know, the distractions ought to be less. They should be anyway. So thinking about trying that as well.
Beautiful. I do recommend everybody experiment with their rhythms and their patterns. So that's a great point. And this is a good time to do that. You know, we're moving into you know, our 7th week, and so we want to optimize the time that we spent on the book. Next question.
By the way, the light time to Pluto is about 5 hours.
I always wondered. Who's next?
That's all.
Okay, good. Diane, and then I think Linda.
So sometimes I'm finding that I'm kind of, I don't know if you'd call it imposter syndrome, where I'm questioning my if I am the right person to be speaking about what I'm speaking about. Or sometimes I even write myself into a corner where I start to go, well, that's stupid. That doesn't, I don't agree with that. Or that just, I don't know if there's anywhere you can speak on that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So we're all operating on the like two levels. And I had a coach that used to say there's the ground war and then there's the air war. And the ground war is, you know, getting your butt in the seat and doing the pages and, you know, like what's happening in the three-dimensional world. And the air war is how you feel about it and your thoughts and your limiting beliefs. And I have a, oops, hold on. I have a,
welcome to How to
sorry,
Write a Book in
just
90
a second.
Days. I am
I'm in echo stereo. I'm sorting through my files right now because I was looking to see if what our homework is for this week. And I'm just gonna add this right now, whether it's our official homework or it's extra credit, this is what I'm gonna ask everybody to do. And it has to do with this air war. When I was in college, and I was a playwright, and I had the lowest self-esteem. You wouldn't believe that it was me. I was in a like advanced graduate school playwriting class, and all of the like everybody else had been like these mounted playwrights, and I was like the newcomer, and I felt often like at any point I'm going to be kicked out. Like somebody's going to find out that I'm not a real writer. And this is actually when I was introduced. Julia Cameron was, I met Julia Cameron, and that changed my whole life, my whole life's direction in my artistry. This artist way teachings it's all about the inner workings of an artist. And the journey and the process, a lot of what I'm teaching. She had us write one sentence, and I'm gonna have you all write this down, and she had us write it in repetition. And so this exercise that I'm gonna have you do in a moment, it's like it took my tail, which was between my legs, and my head was down. It took it and it just like shifted my whole physiology. Like I got, after doing this, that I am a brilliant and prolific writer. I'm, you know, in the world today in a different way because of this one exercise that I learned in college, but I probably practiced it on and off for, I don't know, I'd say 4 or 5 years before I can say, I'm a brilliant and prolific writer. I am, yes. And that's the sentence. I'm a brilliant and prolific writer. Now, we've all done affirmations before. We know that if you can lie to yourself and tell yourself one thing, you can tell yourself the opposite thing. The beauty of this exercise, which is called blurts and affirmations, is actually not about just affirming, but it's mining all the limiting beliefs that come up in reaction to this statement. Now, I've worked with other artists who aren't writers, and we've done other affirmations, and you could cross-apply this to other areas of your life. But for the sake of this class, your homework is to take a piece of paper, and this is with handwriting. On one side of the paper, I actually take a paper and I fold it in half so that you have two halves like a hot dog, as opposed to when you fold a paper like this, which is a hamburger. I learned this from my son. But you fold your paper like a hot dog, like a hot dog, and the one side I write, I'm a brilliant and prolific writer, and then I wait and I listen, and maybe something comes up that says, who you kidding, you know, and I'll write that down. And then I don't analyze it, I just write, I'm a brilliant and prolific writer. And then on this side it says, yeah, you're worthless, and I'll write that down. And then I'll go back, I'm a brilliant and prolific writer. And the response will be like, you can't even finish your 4 pages this week, you know? And so what happens in this process is I'm purging these negative niggling thoughts. And some of those thoughts might be my father, my third grade teacher. It might be my deepest insecurities. It might be my higher self being like, don't get your hopes up. I don't want you to get hurt by trying, and failing again. Whatever the source, you don't even need to know or analyze it. You just go back to looking at it. And as you purge, you can go, wow, I'm carrying all of that around, right? So all I need you to do for homework is write this sentence down 25 times. And after you write it down 25 times with the responses, you'll feel like a lightness and a shift. Like, wow, you can look at it and go, that's not serving my writing process. Now, if you're like I was, and there's a tendency towards self-doubt or, deprecation or self-esteem issues, I would say write this 25 times each day. So you do it as a daily practice until you really feel a shift. So try it this week, and or any time when you feel particularly heavy on this, the air war is like a little thick. You can sit down and say, okay, I'm going to take my writing time during my writing hours, and I'm going to do this because it's that valuable. Doing this work during your writing time is, it will unstick you. So that's my invitation. There's many other ways to work on raising your self-esteem and, tips and tricks. Like, this isn't a personal growth class, but as a hack, as writers, I would say just writing this one sentence 25 times and everything else that arises for you to throw in the garbage is going to be valuable. And what's also valuable is that the knowing that you don't have to turn it around or argue with it or reframe it. You don't have to do all that therapy. All you're doing is digging it up and barfing it out, and you're done with it.
Can we shred it then?
You can burn it.
And burn that shit.
Burn that shit and think of Diane when you do it.
Yeah. This part of what you just said is totally going to be in my book. So thank you.
Excellent. Good. Next question. Linda.
Okay, so this sounds minor, but I keep not being able to find where to get the next accountability buddy. Just not going through and scrolling things is just one of the things of being on the computer more. So,
okay, so
and I'm not having it, and they're not reaching out to me, so I don't know what's going on. If it's that,
Michael, can you and Linda get in touch after this, and you guys can work that out? Thanks.
And then another one. I really like the structure because it's really helping me, because I can be one of those that writes and then goes off here, goes too deep, blah, blah, blah. What comes up for me though sometimes, even with the outline, the outline helps, is a part of me is like going, did I say that already? Because I don't want to be repetitive. I mean, I know editing, we can edit out a lot of that is maybe the solution, as I'm just saying that, but that's where sometimes I'm spending time looking through to see, where did I say that? Or
okay, so redundancy is the number one common issue for editors. Okay, so I want, how should I share this with you? I want to just normalize the way that we think, because reality is not linear. There's a way of saying something one way, and then like if it's almost like if you look at a circle and you're trying to get to the truth and you're entering it this way, you could also enter it that way and that way and that way. And the mind wants to do that with things that are, especially when we're really passionate, we'll say it again and we'll say it different ways and we'll say it in association with different topics. And so an editor, and we do this as writers, even when we've practiced like deep concision, what's the best way to say this? Like I want to normalize that part of the rough draft process is getting it out and getting it out in different ways and getting out in different chapters. And that's okay. Editors will be like, oh my God, if you would have just written your, outline perfectly, you wouldn't have to deal with this redundancy. And yes, when we do our blueprint or our outlining, we try to come from an editor's mind. But at the end of the day, in rewriting, there is no manuscript that doesn't have redundancy. So be gentle with yourself, and sometimes we have to say it 10 times before we say it the way we ultimately want to say it. And sometimes we need to clear all that redundancy to get to the next point that's under it. And it's okay. Like, this is that sloppy first draft. And I will promise you that when you rewrite, you're going to look for, wow, I said the same thing like in 3 different chapters. Great. Let me take the one that's best and then take the other 2 and kind of augment this one. And that's a gift to had you only said it twice, but you never got to the best time saying it. That's
in other words, let it be okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Sure. Next question. Okay, so I'm looking around and I'm not seeing hands.
I have one.
Excellent.
What about when you get stuck? Like, you've got your question, but the 3 words aren't coming, and you're sitting there and you're just like 5 minutes and nothing's coming out.
Okay, good. So the way that I'm inspired to answer your question is to talk about blueprinting a little deeper. And there's lots of answers to how do I unstick, and I don't know in the moment that you're stuck what you're stuck on. So I'm going to just share intuitively what's coming up now. Because you made reference to, you've got your question and it's that you don't know what the 3 words are, or it's that you don't know, you can't write your chunk. You've already written your 3 words. I'm curious.
It depends. Sometimes it flows super great and it's like 3 words come easily and off I go.
Okay.
And then some days it's like I don't get the 3 words. I'm like, nothing's coming out.
Okay, the reason I'm asking, Taina, is because it sounds like you're coming up with the 3 words and then writing your chunk. And so my question to you specifically is, have you pre-written your blueprint and then you're going back and doing the chunks, or are you writing your blueprint as you do the chunks?
I did the blueprint. I think what's happened is that when I hit this particular chapter, I'm uncertain of whether I want this chapter or the next chapter to be the way they are, and they're kind of blending. And so even though I have my blueprint, there's like I'm feeling some resistance and some like disconnect. Whereas before, when it was just like, oh yeah, this is certainly the blueprint that I want, and I'm following it easily. Now these next 2 chapters have been a little like
And that's understandable. Because you have your blueprint, does your blueprint already have 3 words on it?
No.
Okay, that's what I'm saying, is that a blueprint's not a blueprint until it has those 3 words.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you've got questions, but I want to actually rewind with everyone, and I want to buff up how we do the blueprint for a moment. So Taina, can you, for the sake of everyone, can you give me like an example of one or 2 of your questions, the ones without the words?
So what is, I should look it up.
Great. And as she's looking that up, I want to share that the process is first, you make your items, all the different items, and then you turn the items into significant statements by saying to yourself, what's significant about this item? And then you write that statement. So you're going to have a list of 18 statements before you cut 3 and before you organize them, the statements then get turned into questions. And then the words, 3 power words, get generated by just closing your eyes, taking a breath, and asking yourself, what 3 words best describe the answer to this question? Because you're visualizing an answer. You write the 3 words and you're done with your blueprint after you've done that for all 15 points of the chapter. Okay, so that's just
I think that's what I need to do.
Okay.
Is to, because I did that specific process with the first couple chapters, and then it flowed really easy. And then I was like, shit, I gotta just start writing. I don't have time to work on my blueprint anymore. So I just took my items, and then as I was going through the item, then I'd ask the question, then I'd do the thing, and then I'd start writing, because I don't have time to blueprint it. But I think I'm gonna have to make time to blueprint it further. Good. Because now I'm finding that it's not going as smoothly as it was.
Good. Stay with me. That is really valuable, especially now that we're this many weeks in and you're learning about yourself as a writer. You're like, ooh, I do write best when I have a blueprint. So now many of you have contrasted, right? Ooh, how do I write without? How do I write with? And if you write better with, then fucking do your blueprinting. So I want you to stay with me, Taina, because for the benefit of the class, do give me one question, that you, or actually, whether it's a statement or a question, go ahead and give me an example of a point.
Okay. So why is it important to talk about this story, like this piece of my life, So
great.
It's kind of like a series of stories. So that question's up a lot. Like, why is this important? Why is this relevant?
Okay, great. I'm so glad that we're stopping here, because I want everyone to really get this. There is a tendency to rush, because of the way, the instructions for the blueprint there's a tendency to rush into making your point into a question and skipping, like, ooh, here's the story. Like, the piece of your life you want to tell. Here's the story, right? Give me a title for it. It might be like,
My first loves.
Good. First love. Loves. Good. First loves.
Plural.
Excellent. Very important. First loves is the point. And then the question, it's going to be a question. So you just turn it into, why is it important to talk, about the first loves? But what you're missing is the point in between. Okay. The gold is saying, why is it important to talk about my first loves to yourself? Right? Yeah. That's not the question you're going to answer. You're making, why is it significant to talk about my first loves? And so the statement might sound something like, I'm not Taina, so it might sound something like, my first loves opened me to the possibility of unconditional love, or my first loves introduced me to the abundance of the universe. Or, so you make the statement so that then when you go to the question, it's why or how did my first loves introduce me to the abundance of the universe? Now I have a specific question that I can write on for 5 minutes. That's not just open-ended, right? So it's that difference between, tell me about your sex life, and, tell me how your sex life became like so fractured, right? Whatever it is, what is significant about that point, you have to make a list of 18, significant statements before you even go into making them into questions. And so I highly recommend going forward, even right now, if you've done your whole blueprint, before you take your 5-minute chunk, you look at that question and you say, what is significant? Is that question really hitting on the significant point? And then turning it into a question. Even if you have to reverse engineer your blueprint a little bit, it's way worth it.
Thank you. That helps a lot.
Great. Good. That's helpful to everyone. Thank you. What else do we have? We've got a little more time, and I'm sure there's more questions. Good. Aviv.
Yeah. Hey. I've been through a process at the writing of the blueprint. I almost finished, but I was very challenged with the concept of the points and also with that question, who is it that is writing the book? Like, is it me as that person, or is it like that being that wants to write it through me? And so I restarted the whole blueprint and in a way that make much more sense to me and feels good. But I got to write only the chapters and the like to the 15 points and no questions and no 3 words. And then because I didn't want to go back and to start like to be in a lot of delay relative to where we are together, I just it was a challenge for me. It took me like a week of, but I just start to write and with no words and no questions. And there was a week that it was challenging because it was difficult for me to do it without the power words. And I'm kind of sharing that journey in kind of question. I don't know exactly what to ask even,
Yeah.
but maybe there is suggestion around that.
Yeah. Aviv, thank you for sharing it, because it's actually beautifully mirrors what I shared with the group, you know, meaning you're in the perfect place. Even though it was hard, I did say, hey, here's the instructions, and you struggled with it. And then I said, hey, go ahead and just write without it. And you did that. And one of the questions that is coming up now is who's writing the book? That's called point of view, right? So we all have to contend with what is the voice and what is the point of view, right? And I'm having that issue right now as Michael and I are co-authoring, because, you know, as co-authors, do we say we every time we say I? Does Michael handle the dude stuff and I handle the chick stuff? Like, you know, like what's that voice, like who's writing, who's talking to the audience, what's the relationship? And then I want to share with you guys, I wrote a book, 52 Fridays, and it had 5 parts, and it had 3 different points of view. Like, I'm like, ooh, I'll go with the main character, and then I'll go with the omnipotent, you know, God voice that just tells all the details, and then I'll go with Violet's perspective in her journals. And when the publishers found it, they said, ooh, I need you to change this chapter to this voice and this and that, and too much head hopping. And I was astounded, because I wrote the book and that's how it came through, because I channeled it. And I was astounded when they said, hey, time to change this, that I could actually go back and change my voice and change the point of view pretty easily. Like, that's a rewriting issue. So one of the things about, you know, what voice to write in, I say write, you know, just write as it comes through, and then later you can clean that up. But your awareness now, having blueprinted and having written without a blueprint, you say, ooh, I want to use the power words, I want to do the blueprint. So you have both to pull from. I say do what feels most exciting to you, and that may be going back and adding the power words, because that's what excites you. So for everyone, it's where's the juice, right? We're running this marathon, and we don't want to just be dragging our feet. We want to be running it enthusiastically. So go to that part of writing that feels juicy to you.
Well, there was definitely a juice about re-editing, like rewriting the manuscript, but it would regress me a lot. Like, I will need to catch up. I will not be able to stand in time.
Let me ask you this. When you say there's juice about rewriting, do you mean rewriting the blueprint or rewriting the pages that you wrote with, you know, just wrote?
No, rewriting the questions and the 3 power words.
Good. There's a lot of value to writing the blueprint, for sure. Please, nobody go back at this stage and rewrite any of the chunks. That is a different type of writing. So if you need to take the week Aviv, because it's like, oh, I want to write, then don't rewrite the whole blueprint, rewrite one chapter blueprint, and then write from the blueprint, and then re-blueprint one chapter, and then write that chapter. Do you know what I'm saying? So that you're doing both and moving forward. Yeah. I mean, it won't take long for you to rewrite one chapter. Re-blueprinting a chapter can be done in an hour easily.
Yeah.
So you just spend an hour doing that, and then spend the rest of the week doing that chapter.
Yeah.
Or more. Yeah. Great. Good. Anything else?
So it's actually in value to go back and write these power words rather than just writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's what I was telling, that's what I was telling Taina too. Now we've done the experiment. We're at this week right now. Last week, I didn't want you to go back. This week, do whatever is going to help you flow, because you have enough experience to know what works and what doesn't work. Yeah.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you. Okay, so we have, we're going to be wrapping up here soon. This is the last call for any burning questions. What will help you complete your manuscript? So that next time we meet, we can talk about rewriting. So those of you who have not done your, here, I have to hold it this way, your mock-ups, your book mock-ups. I usually do suggest people do it in 2 weeks. So if you did it already, extra credit, you did it in a week. And now on the second week, if you want to do what Taina modeled, which is doing the back of the page, right? Like with you're welcome to do that once you've finished your writing hours and times and pages. It's kind of like an extra credit this week. And you could do the back, or you could actually upgrade it. You can, for many, the mock-up is an iterative process where as you get inspired, you can keep working on it. But it is, again, it's a right brain, nonlinear part of the magic that we're doing. So the other piece of the homework is to recalculate your weekly writing target, based on the fact now that we're on week 7. I think that means we have 6 more weeks to go. And you want to, look at how much you've written and see how much you have left to write divided by the last 6 weeks of our journey. Michael's going to rearrange the accountability buddies, and it's nice to do. Are we enjoying having 3 accountability buddies? So you have 2 others, and that way there's a yeah, good. If one person falls, the other person can. We've got more synergy that way, so we'll keep doing it that way. Thank you. And let's see. As we wrap up, do I have any closing notes? I want to move beyond this. This class has felt like a lot of like, rah, rah, it's important to be a cheerleader and to celebrate. And it absolutely is important to keep seeing the beauty of what we're doing in the positive perspective, so that we can, it's like we've got a son right now and he's a teenager, and you want to catch him doing good and celebrate, so that, humans actually behaviorally flourish when rewarded, and then they shrink when they're punished. Like it's the carrot and the stick metaphor. And if you're beating yourself up, if you're like, when you think about your book, do you think, oh, I got to get to my pages? That's no fun. You're never going to get to your pages or your time. But if you think, ooh, I can't wait, and you start to, get juicier in the anticipation, then the book process will grow and grow. So, be very mindful of the inner landscapes during the process. But beyond the motivational piece, I want to, come back to the story of Miles Monroe, because it is profound that, he's no longer with us, and his work is, that we are immortalizing our lives and our teachings by doing these books, and to really feel, especially at this time in history, when there's so much transformation, how important it is. Life is so precious, and we don't know what the future brings, but we each hold a very important perspective and piece of the puzzle. And as we pour ourselves into the giving of this to the world, it's like a way of, really being a part of the future that we want to create. And so sometimes when we're confused or in self-doubt, or, that's all personal. That's all deeply like, hey, that's the ego doing its trip. And the ego will do its trip, and you can barf it out on your blurts and affirmations. But it's a reminder way beyond, any of that story, that we are, we are not just God's secretaries, but we're emissaries of the divine. And to be that, ironically, instead of getting full and saying, ooh, this is God's work, I'm God's secretary, like letting that be a tool for the ego again. We don't want the ego to take credit for God's work. So what we do is we humble ourselves, hollow ourselves out, show up regardless of whether the will and the ego wants to write, doesn't write, how it feels about the writing. We hollow ourselves out and say, the quality is not my business. It's my business to show up and to serve. And just as we would to a meditation or a yoga practice, we come to the writing and we offer up what's there. And for many people on this class who already have a meditation practice, how audacious it is to be like, hey, I'm going to sit on my pillow and get enlightened. It's like, no, I'm going to sit and be with suchness. This is what's here. And sometimes when you write, you got to show up and just see what's there. And the part of you that wants to make it great or wants to make it shit, which is going to oscillate sometimes between, every 5 minutes, that's monkey mind. That's not what's writing this book. There's a force, a God force within us that's much deeper. And sure, we might have to, clear out the crud, maybe sometimes even on the page, in order to let the God force through. But, don't get seduced into thinking that this is about you. It's not really about how you're going to look or what it's going to mean. Like if your ego wants to think all that, great. If it's like your ego's like, ooh, I'm going to get more clients by doing that, fine. But we know, like, as we circle here in sacred space, it's like we know who's really doing the work, and it's something much, much deeper than we can understand from the body mind. So it's with that reminder to hollow yourself out that I invite you to enthusiastically, show up to the spiritual practice of writing every week. Yeah. Blessings. It's a total pleasure. And we'll see you soon.
Bye. Love you.
Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.